Hey folks, Fernando doing another video for the Modern Survivalist, and here I have a question that I got in one of my previous videos, the one that is titled "The Problem with the American Redoubt Concept" was a video, and the question that I have is, wait, so you're suggesting that people can feed themselves? The redoubt is not just to fight a war or survive an invasion or massacre or something. It's true that it would be a target, though. We have our government's massacre at Waco as proof. So, I take quite a bit of pride in this channel. It's not big, it's not fancy, but it is reality based. That's the thing I focus on. It's not just my own life experience and such. It's been years of reading, learning, studying, reading books, meeting people, exchanging information through email, and learning from other folks as well. It's something I take seriously. I don't just come up with stuff out of the air. So part of the answers to the question here is in the question itself. When he says we have Waco as proof, that's actually a good example. Waco is a good example of what happens to people when they are making a last stand in a fixed position, may that be a homestead, bunker, farm, whatever it is. When those folks surrounded by overwhelming force, they do not fare well. They are going to be most likely dying, getting killed in that event. And that's something that scales down to self-defense. If you are in a shooting, you have to get off the X. You have to move from that fixed position where you're still, where you're sitting duck, basically. You have to move out of there. If you scale that to a bunch of people in a house, in a building, whatever that may be, if you are surrounded by a military force, by looters, by whatever it is that it's going after you, you are not likely to make it. That doesn't mean that you should not work on security, on improving the security of your home, of your farm, of your homestead. Whatever it is, the place where you live in, you have to improve security and make it as tough of a target as possible. But that's being a tough target for robbers, home invaders, that sort of thing. Not talking here about surviving a fight with the National Guard or surviving fights with rebels or an armed force that uprised and is going after people for whatever reason. That simply does not work. When that happens, your only hope is getting out of there. It's not me making up stuff because I feel like it. It is actually me having done my homework and knowing what I'm talking about, which again is what this channel is about. So whenever you are, and I know this pisses a lot of people off because folks don't like to hear stuff that goes against the beliefs they've already convinced themselves about. So if you are, you've made a decision and you're living in a homestead in the country, and you're thinking this is fantastic because when the end of the world comes, I'm gonna be ready here in my bug out location, and whatever happens, I'm set. Well, no. If that worst case scenario actually happens, you're not set at all. You're probably as screwed as everyone else, maybe even a little bit worse than someone that is in a nice area in the city. One of those nasty city people. As time goes by and the situation develops and crime starts going up, maybe folks that live in an apartment, in a building, they're going to be getting together and organizing so as to get better security for the building, and that may end up working. You stuck in a farm somewhere fighting it off on your own or with a few of your buddies, that's not going to be working. And it's not just an idea of mine. These are facts. If you look at people that have gone through this same stuff that we're talking about, whenever it's 2 a.m. and you're thinking about these things, stop doing that. Go online and read what happened to the people in South Africa, the South African farmers that went through this exact same thing. All right, these are guys that are hardy people, love their land, they love their farms, they love their home, and they are facing a constant attacks. Not even by the government. It's not the government it's not the military that's going after them. The government is just kind of looking the other way and letting the criminal elements of society, those that are willing to do the dirty work for them, go after them unpunished. So they're constantly being attacked, robbed, and harassed in their homes. And the reality is that they've been killed by the thousands. Throughout years, decades even, they keep on losing. It's stuff that's available online. There's books that you can read about it. I've met people that have gone through this, and they would tell me. So lose-lose situation. Eventually they get to you. There's really nothing you can do. The only folks that are still over there that somewhat have a reasonable life are in some communities with a gated neighborhood and private security, close to town. You know, that's the kind of thing that in South Africa and some of the third world countries in South America, those are the only places where you have somewhat reasonable safety so as to go on with a reasonable life. Even if worse, if you're thinking about, you know, as it's often read in some of these survival fantasies, if the UN is invading, if Russia, China, if there's a force invading, you also have good examples. You have Ukraine, eastern Ukraine was invaded by Russia. Do you think people there started shooting it out with Russia and won anything? You know, maybe if you organize and you're part of the Ukrainian army and you're fighting, sure, that's a possibility. Now, if you are with your buddies in a farm and Russia is invading and you start shooting, you're gonna be blown up in a matter of minutes. There's really not much you can do. And I've gotten emails from people that, you know, send me messages and, you know, hey, Furfel, I was in eastern Ukraine. We took off when this started getting ugly. We are now in the capital. We're in Kiev. We have a job and such. And that's what gets you alive during those worst case scenarios. You have to understand that maybe the life you really enjoy and love right now in the sticks, in your cabin in the woods, or whatever more isolated type of homestead or farm where you're living now and enjoying it, it's only possible because none of these shit hit the fan worst case situations have happened. That's what allows that to be possible. And there's nothing really wrong with that. Don't get me wrong, it's absolutely perfect to live any way you wish. Life is too short to do anything else, as I've said numerous times. But be realistic about it. Do you live a certain way, live in a certain place, do certain things throughout your day which you love doing, which is perfectly valid. That there's really, you don't need any more excuse than that. But don't lie to yourself as of, yeah, this is fantastic in case things get worse. In fact, maybe what you should be doing so as to keep it real is have plan B, have a strategy so as to what would I be doing if something really bad like that happens. What would I be doing in the worst case situations where this is really no longer viable anymore, like in the previous mentioned cases. And something about there regarding food now. Are you suggesting that people cannot feed themselves? No, absolutely. I'm not saying that. People can absolutely feed themselves. It's not really as easy as some folks seem to believe it is, especially you're providing your entire dietary needs on your own. That's pretty hard. That's not nearly as easy as some folks think. Even folks that farm professionally for a living, have large chunks of land, usually they focus on one or two products. Maybe it's a dairy farm, or it's a soy that they're planting. It's usually focused on something when it's a larger scale operation. What is far more common though, and I think it's actually a great idea, is supplementing your dietary needs. So you would have, you would have some greens, growing some fruits, vegetables, having some animals. You have a few chickens, eggs, and such, and that's supplementing maybe the stockpile of food that you have for a worst case situation. Maybe you're stockpiling rice, lentils, beans. That's the kind of thing you would be supplementing with whatever you're growing yourself during tough times. So that is fantastic. I absolutely like that idea. Now, you also have to be, again, realistic in terms of how efficiently are you using your time. If you're planning on living in a certain place and growing food, and that's your strategy, you have to understand that growing your own food as a way of making a living is maybe one of the less efficient ways in which you can spend your time and energy. What I mean by this is, if you spend an entire day growing food and creating your own food, for the great majority of the population, most middle class folks with another line of work, that entire day spent doing something else, it's going to be more efficient, and it's going to be allowing them to acquire far more food, tools, goods, whatever it is that they need, the money they're going to be making out of that is going to be far greater than just growing food directly themselves. And at the same time, you have to understand that maybe you're not growing food yourself, but you can buy higher quality food. You can buy organic, you can buy from a local farm, buying from your neighborhood, buying it in the farmer's market in your little town, wherever it is that you live. Those are also possibilities. So it's not just a one-way solution. At the end of the day, it's really about doing what you love doing with your life. It really doesn't make sense to do anything else. But keep it honest. Be honest with yourself. And that's going to be allowing you to plan better. So whenever folks start, yes, food is extremely important. Food is you're not going to be surviving much without food. There's a ton of ways of getting food, not just growing it yourself. Even though growing it yourself is a very viable thing and completely understandable why a lot of people do it and enjoy it. That's maybe the key word. But if you look, for example, at one of the things I remember reading from the siege of Sarajevo is there was this guy that he had a chicken in the middle of the city. He had living in an apartment or a small house, but he had maybe 1 or 2 chickens, and he took care of those freaking chickens like if they were sacred, because feeding those 2 animals, he was getting eggs. Those eggs were protein for him during the siege, and that was extremely precious in that specific situation. And when people maybe read that, they think, okay, that's it. I have to go live in a farm, start raising chickens because the guy in Sarajevo tells me how important those chickens are. Well, those chickens are very important, but would you want to be the guy that's stuck in Sarajevo with a couple of chickens, or would you rather be the guy that had other resources? He had networked with other folks, he had maybe money, he had information, he knew what was happening, and he took off entirely and was never stuck in siege Sarajevo in the first place, spending years there being bombed and going under sniper fire all day long. Which one would you rather be of the two? That's is something that you also have to keep in mind. Guys, that's going to be all. If you're interested in this kind of reality-based survival the way I do it, I of course have my books, The Modern Survival Manual, which is available on the link there below in Amazon, and more to the point of bugging out and when this is something that you may end up having to do in some of these worst case scenarios. My second book, Bugging Out and Relocating, also available there. It's not nice, guys. Let me put it this way. This is a conversation I do a lot of, exchanging ideas in the forums and such, and this is something that upsets people. They don't even like to think about the possibility of, having to leave your home because it turned into freaking Venezuela one day. No one likes that, and yet, it happens. Venezuela happened. Eastern Ukraine happened. Even Argentina, like for me, it happened for me as well. I'm perfectly happy not living there anymore and wouldn't have it any other way. And even now, I still talk to people that, man, how did you realize? Well, what made you realize that you had to leave? Now everything is so much worse and we want to leave and we can't leave because it's so much more difficult. Everything is far more expensive. When I left Argentina, the currency exchange rate was like 9 pesos to $1. And that's affecting directly how much even a plane ticket it cost you. Now the exchange rate is like $50 per dollar. So it's 500%, the valuation, whatever it is you want to. It's 5 times as much. I don't know. It's getting more complicated. It's getting worse in many ways. And now, especially with the new elections coming up, and maybe this woman, Cristina Kirchner, winning again, it could be a complete nightmare. It could effectively be Venezuela. Argentina could easily become Venezuela right now. So did I have any crystal ball? Am I some freaking genius of no, I'm none of those things. There's hundreds of thousands of people that left Argentina before I did. There's hundreds of thousands of people that left Venezuela before. Many of them got stuck now, and there's thousands of people that left probably Eastern Ukraine as well. But it's also true that there are hundreds of thousands or millions of people stuck in those same places because denial was more powerful than reason and logic. Denial told them, I'm not going to be leaving my farm. I have my animals here, my crops. I have everything here. and no, I'm going to be staying here, I'm going to be making my last stand, I'm going to be okay. And no, they were not okay. They lost everything, even their lives. So you have to be cold and analytic about these decisions. Fortunately, you guys mostly watching this in countries that are not likely to see this will never have to make such a hard choice. But one of the other things I've learned over the years is never say never. You just never know what happens even a few years down the road. Guys, it's going to be all for now. Remember to subscribe. See you on the next video. Have a great day.